We're coming, and we ain't backing down.
We don't need a bunch of cats in here looking in the mirror.
Everybody just do your job. You understand that?
Hey, will you shut up?
I'm bitterly disappointed with the officiating today.
Guys being dudes.
And they run through our like through a tin horn, man.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thanks, Les. Alex Kirshner, first big coaching firing of the season.
Richard Johnson, it is that time of year. Look, there's a lot of things that are going on. Anytime a coach is fired, means a lot for the coach, means a lot for the school. Obviously, we hope that everyone's doing fine anytime they lose a job. But I'm going to be honest, kind of exciting that we're into coach firing season because it also means coach hiring season.
Indeed. We, on this show and its spiritual successors, we have a way of talking about these things. We use our therapy words, I think, I feel, and I know. And in order to use those words correctly, I think that we should sort of have the maestro, the person who honestly bequeathed me the knowledge of how to speak about such things. That is one, Stephen Godfrey of BannerSociety.com. Stephen Godfrey, welcome to the show.
Hey, hi. Sorry, it's just I was like, there were applause in my head. I came in like a guest on a talk show.
Yeah.
Trying to have that energy today. Yeah. I liked what happened in my Alex intro about where I'm halfway from Hilton Head to Atlanta.
Well, yeah, Stephen, you are well-versed in South Carolina affairs because you are from Macon, Georgia, where I have been before, where I've spent several hours in a great Applebee's. And the reason that I know that you know South Carolina is that that's only halfway, roughly halfway, between Atlanta and Hilton Head. So you know the Palmetto State pretty well.
Alex has created an all-time troll that like a UGA board would stand up and give like the rock applause gift to. But he just doesn't know it, that he's basically slighted South Carolina by implying my knowledge is based that I'm from Georgia. This is some deep state UGA troll shit, and I'm very happy you did it. I don't even know if you know that you did that, but I'm proud of you.
It's the best. It's best because he's Yankee.
Well, because Richard, so the trolling in the SEC East works south to north in my lifetime. Which is like, even though Georgia's been on a run in the cocktail party, it's the dominance with the national titles. It's Florida trolls Georgia. Georgia trolls, really effortlessly, South Carolina. We'll get into the South Carolina situation in a minute. So, Alex, you did a wonderful job without even knowing it.
That's exactly how I planned it. I want to start by asking a question. And Godfrey, I'll start with you again because of your alluded to South Carolina expertise. Why did South Carolina fire Will Muschamp now, other than they are bad, which they are?
Are you asking me, should they have fired him earlier or later, or can we just talk about how they shouldn't have hired him in the first place?
I'm asking you why they did it now. Sure, if you want to tell us why they shouldn't have hired him in the first place, go ahead. But I'm curious why it is that right now in mid-November of this pandemic year, with this giant buyout, why you think they did it anyway. And sure, if you want, the buyout's like $13 million, which is a lot of dollars. That's almost an entire Petrino right there. So, Godfrey, why is this happening? And if you want to tell me why they shouldn't have hired him in the first place, then let the spirit move you.
I just remember being in the parking lot of, I can't remember the name of it, Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis before the Big Ten title game. I'm trying to get confirmation because it was down to, I think I told Richard this on the phone the other day. It was down to Will Muschamp and Rich Rodriguez for the South Carolina job. It's always fun to look back at these things in hindsight, and you're like, did they make a good decision? Was it just as bad a decision at the time then as it is now? And it just makes me laugh. Yeah, they should have never hired him. He won exactly as many games at South Carolina as he did at Florida, but he took longer to do it. Did y'all know that?
I did not know that.
Good times, everybody. I do not have a salient, strong reason that I believe as to why they hired him right now in terms of like logic. The funniest
why they fired him right now, you mean?
Yeah, the funniest thing to me is Ray Tanner came out and talked about how eligibility and one-time transfer was a big issue, and how they wanted to get in front of that. And my favorite part about that.
What? Sorry.
This is my favorite part. 2 days after he says that, as if that was some contributing factor, 4 South Carolina players leave the team and get ready for the draft. But
NFL corners like Peace.
You don't have control of this situation. You think you do. You don't have control of this situation at all. I do not have a good answer other than the fact that this is something that's been in the works and been explored as early as the offseason leading into the 2019 football season. So I think if we're in a non-COVID parallel universe, they're going to evaluate him specifically on the development of the offense and the development of the quarterback position under Mike Bobo. Because things got so weird this year, they had the big win against Auburn, and I think finally they just saw system failure and said, why not now? I think they want to get out in the market too, which is so weird, and that's something we can talk about in a second. I swear I'm not trying to filibuster. They accidentally started the market. There was no market to worry about, and they were so worried that they did it first. This is what they did last time, y'all. Spurrier retired early, so they said, we can own the market. You're South Carolina. You aren't going to own shit.
It's funny because the logic turns on its head very quickly in this sport. A lot of the talk over the summer into the early fall was, well, it's really tough because he's got this big buyout and there's this budgetary hole that's been left in basically every institution of higher learning in the world
South Carolina,
this year.
Just sorry, Alex, to cut you off, but South Carolina is staring down the barrel of a $50 million budget shortfall. Athletic department.
That's it. Wow. And for we spend weeks talking about, well, that's going to make it tough for him to fire a coach, and suddenly they fire the coach. And one of the reported reasons for that, and a number of people were kind of bandying this about. I don't know who said it first, but I suspect that it is some of the logic that they would use, is that if you don't pay this $13.3 million buyout, that might actually cost you more because of fan apathy. And, you might lose money via not contending for SEC championships. Again, this is South Carolina. Just bear with me, though. Not contending for the playoff. You might more realistically see a drop in ticket sales, even though right now you can only fill your stadium a very, very small fraction anyway. But so I guess I would ask, not to be too existential about this, but does it matter at all that South Carolina did this? Are they actually maybe in the long run making some business sense here? I think they might be making some long-term business sense here. No? Okay, no.
No. Because we'll get into the short list in a second. We'll get into the names that are being rumored and then probably what they'll logically end up with. And I'm just beating myself in the face with my microphone right now. This was going to happen anyway. Yes. You didn't need to do this. I'm still just agog because this was the one school and the one coach I used as an example in a story a month and a half ago as to surely the economic circumstances surrounding COVID-19 and the fact that we're in a manufactured recession in the middle of a worldwide pandemic. Surely no one would be dumb enough to do this. And the example I used, they did it.
I feel redeemed, Godfrey, because I remember when we were talking about this, I feel redeemed because I was like, you were like, Godfrey says, well, are they really going to do this? And I was like, watch. And wow, very, very exciting to be redeemed by Ray Tanner in South Carolina against someone as well sourced as you. I feel really accomplished. But is this actually a good job? Are they going to, we'll talk about candidates in a sec, but is this actually a good job?
Richard, you can go first.
Okay, so a couple things. First of all, I do think one of the things financially is, and this is a thing that I think everybody should sort of keep track of this cycle. I think that salaries and salary pools, I don't think things are actually going to go backwards, but I don't think things are going to go through the roof either. I think basically everything compensation-wise, et cetera, is going to stay flat more or less. And I say that to say I don't think South Carolina is going to bring somebody in and pay them $6 for no reason, right? I don't think they're going to come in and throw that type of money in there. Godfrey, what was Muschamp on? 4.5?
It was reduced down because the actual original buyout before this season was in the 16s, and now it was down to 13.3. So I'm on the spot right now, but I believe it was reduced down, and what he did was he froze. So most coaches now, the way that you do this and the way that you engineer your buyout accordingly is that you have your deal and this usually happens on the second contract, your deal bumps itself up and then thus bumps your buyout as well by like margins of $1 million. So it's like 4.2 to 4.4. This keeps happening. So throughout the course of the deal, I'm looking. I won't have it in podcast time. I'm not that worried about it. But they are not going to look. It doesn't even matter, Richard, if they paid $7 million a year. This job,
they're not going to, but yes,
this job on a map is as close to impossible as a Power 5 job with these expectations can be. I've written this. I've said this. This is my talking point on South Carolina. I think the expectation and the reality are so disjointed at South Carolina that it would make Nebraska look rational. And I really believe that because you now have, in addition to the normal lower bunk life that you lead in the SEC East trying to compete with Georgia and Florida specifically, as well as things like a functional, manageable Kentucky, right? Or a Tennessee team that occasionally is more talented than you. You now have in your state rival a national power, a dynasty.
The national power, arguably.
You literally have Alabama across the state in South Carolina. So how in the world, and we can get into how Clemson got there, and is that something that you can replicate, or are you pinned in by the fact that this also ran in the SEC, whatever. It doesn't matter. What matters is that's the table I'm setting you. So who wants to go and take that situation and engineer expectations of your boosters accordingly?
So this is my question here. And it's similar to, I guess it's similar sort of Nebraska existentially. What exactly is the real expectation? I'm not talking about Rivals poster. What is the real sort of expectation here, right? There are 3 auto losses on this schedule every year. Out of Florida, Georgia, Clemson, and everybody is forgetting. If this Texas A&M thing is not a blip on the radar, that is South Carolina's cross-division opponent. So out of those 4 games, you are never winning more than 1. You're just not.
I'd also add, here's the problem, Richard. Of those auto losses that you talked about, 2 are the rivals that you hate the most in Clemson and Georgia.
Sure.
Those are your identity standard-bearing programs. Those are the things that you're trying to beat, compete with, live with next door, all that stuff. So
if we are running under the assumption Clemson
that's the
stays where
problem,
they are,
though.
Georgia stays roughly where they are, and Florida and A&M are operational to the point that they are now or roughly near it. That's sort of the playing field for the next 2, 3, 4 years.
This is a poorer man's Auburn situation where you are watching across the state a national title dynasty, a national title making machine reach its full potential in the midst of a brutal division and a brutal conference. And the difference between Auburn and South Carolina is Auburn can at least once in a blue moon compete and win a national title. South Carolina is not equipped to do that.
Right. So the 3 11-win seasons when Steve Spurrier was there, awesome, great. But I think there's a thing here. Like, remember the talent staffed on that team. Remember Stephon Gilmore. Remember, obviously, Jadeveon Clowney. Remember I literally almost called him Marshawn. Marcus Lattimore. And guys like A.J. Cann, right? South Carolina will always compete in the state recruiting. All 4 of those guys I just said were from the state of South Carolina. South Carolina will always compete in the state. South Carolina will always get many of the best players in the state, whether Clemson is there or not. But when we talk about the players that it took to get South Carolina to 11 wins, right? These sort of generational talents that came in 3 straight recruiting classes that all went to South Carolina around 2010 before Dabo had it booted up. To get South Carolina to this sustainable 10 or 11 year-over-year win total, I just don't think you're going to get the confluence of events that is generational stratosphere players who you get to come to a South Carolina who don't go to Clemson and do that 3 cycles in a row to perpetuate that level of success. Now, if Ray Tanner and co. are bringing in a guy to win 8 a year, okay, all right. Doable, difficult, but doable. Considering also because they don't schedule nuts out of conference and the state makes them play like Wofford once a year too. So doable. Alex.
Wasn't Muschamp the guy who you hire to win 8 games a year? And that's not a Florida dig, Richard. But if you're in South Carolina's position, and this is going to take us to who they might hire, who they should hire, but wouldn't you just want to hire someone who will be able to coach defense against the teams that are not your auto losses and that will be able to, like, make it big, ugly, and, you know, take you to, I don't know, like a Gator Bowl type game?
And that's, that is a not bad existence for South Carolina. The Outback Bowl every year, right?
Be tremendous. But I assume that that's not what they're looking for. And seeing as that is probably not what they're looking for, this is a two-parter. And Godfrey, you talked about the gap between expectations and reality. Who should they hire, and who might they actually hire? Or who are they going to want to hire, and who might they actually hire?
Remember your therapy words.
The problem here is that it's wide open. It's early on, and they are the first Power 5 team out of the gate. So you're going to have a very wide pool at first of I heard this, or the AD's saying this. I might add, by the way,
I'm actually a little surprised that the pool of I heard this initially wasn't that big, but then again, 2020 makes it sort of weird. And also, for all the listeners, we're going to say a lot of things about this job we already have. Remember, an one of these 14 jobs makes people do weird things in the industry.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something to take in consideration. I would set this conversation up by saying I don't know how involved Ray Tanner is going to be, and I don't know how much longer he's going to be at South Carolina. That's a huge thing right off the bat, right? The other thing is this. I don't think that this Hugh Freeze thing seems like these people who are telling you that this is turnkey are misinformed, flat out. I've said this before. I'll say it again. I should probably stop saying that all the time. Greg Sankey, by comparison to Mike Slive, has been a largely feckless leader of the Southeastern Conference. He's essentially had to be a steward for what was created before him and keep the money machine printing. The one time I have seen him show the gangster backbone and the resolve needed to keep the warring factions in line was when he stamped out Hugh Freeze from consideration in the Southeastern Conference after the hell that he wrought alongside other individuals like Dan Mullen in the NCAA Mississippi saga. This idea that South Carolina, of all programs, has enough clout within this conference to convince the commissioner's office that Hugh Freeze deserves a head coaching position in the SEC rings totally false to me. The other issue is this. If Ray Tanner is leaving, I could see it being a potential possibility. If Ray Tanner is staying, there's no way that he could live with Hugh Freeze. I don't see that at all. So I'm very curious as to who's actually orchestrating the hire. Now, Richard and I, in discussing some information this week, Richard, who is the individual that's been contracted to work the search firm?
Chad Chatlos, real PAPN heads, remember the name.
I am willing to bet that Chad Chatlos is not going to, on the stake of his, every time these search firm guys do this, they're putting their reputation on the line. And I'm going to tell you for a fact that I don't think Chad Chatlos is going to slide a piece of paper across the table with the reputation of him and his business on the line and go, Hugh Freeze, turnkey, success. Okay, I don't remember what our swear word contingent or like what our barometer is for swear words on this show, but let me just go ahead and lean in and say that's not going to fucking happen, okay? Because people in this industry understand that he's a functional poison. So yes, he's won some games at Liberty, but let's all take a deep breath and a step back. There are rational names, and if you would like to discuss the rational names now, I think we can do that. Alex, I know you're very excited about one of these rational names.
Yes, hypothesis submitted for peer review. Just hire Jamie Chadwell, you nincompoops. Just do it and be done with it. This is the coach of Coastal Carolina who is running. It's hard to run an offense at this point that is actually creative. Like, everyone runs an aggressive spread offense. Everyone likes RPOs. Great. But Coastal has succeeded in having a fun and interesting offense in 2020. They have lost no games. It is in the same state. Why do they not just why is the truck not backing up right now, Steven?
I can tell you why, and it's the dumbest logic in the world, but money has never equated intelligence in the United States of America. That's not how
particularly not in our wonderful corner of the corner of the world.
That ain't how capitalism works, regardless of how you feel. The reason why is that you are having to look a booster corps in the face, who, by the way, they're compared to Clemson, this is an underfunded operation. This is an undermanned operation. But, guys, you owe $13.3 million to Will Muschamp during a recession in a pandemic.
With no offset language.
And
Are you serious?
Yeah. And,
oh, my God.
And this is the price tag we're going to pay for the coach of Coastal Carolina? The problem is that, Alex, you are not wrong about anything that you said, and I do believe what Coastal Carolina has accomplished is more than anything related to a 2020 or a COVID fluke. I think he's a very accomplished coach. I think what he's doing is remarkable, and I think he would be a wonderful fit for a rational South Carolina who's trying to understand we have to win. We have to win the long way. We have to be a Wake Forest and develop 5-year talent in order to compete. And God knows they're going to get super pissed that I made that comparison. But that's also the reality. So you could
Jamie Chadwell also probably comes cheaper than a certain coach that I think me and Godfrey understand who may have rights of first refusal to this job.
And who might that be?
That would be one Billy Napier of Louisiana, who I think, because we're talking about them in this realm, has earned the Louisiana for this week. One would imagine that a Sunbelt coach comes cheaper than that. And for all of the things that we've talked about financially, that is another reason to go that route. I also want to be quick. The Joe Brady thing, I think, therapy word, that you need to get that out of your mind. I don't think Joe Brady ping-pongs back to college after going back to the NFL as quickly as he did. Remember, it's not like Joe Brady came back, spent a decade, and then went back to the NFL. Joe Brady hung out for like 14 months and pieced. Would imagine.
Well, he was. I mean, he was an NFL coach. I mean, that's what people. He was an NFL coach who moonlit
and
for a little bit.
Yes.
For a hot minute, because he saw what we all saw eventually, which was this was a way to catapult his career. This was a way to pivot off of an NFL level quarterback. Joe Brady don't want to deal with the bullshit you got to deal with. That's why there are Billy Napiers in this world, and they love that bullshit. They operate in it, and that's really where they build their resume, is the ability to create central authority out of such a diffuse collection of responsibilities. Culture, boosters, 18-year-olds, all this shit. There are guys who love that, who love to roll around in that shit, and Joe Brady ain't one, okay? Billy Napier is.
Billy Napier is also represented by an individual who can make things happen. Will Muschamp, also represented by said individual.
Crazy how that happens.
Crazy how that works. Okay, is that enough on South Carolina? I think we're quite done with South Carolina. Yes?
I think it is.
Okay, from one business to another. Podcast business. Home Field Apparel. Your home for premium and comfortable collegiate apparel. Promo code SZD for 20% off of your first order. Black Friday is coming up pretty soon. The Christmas season is coming up pretty soon. No better place to get collegiate apparel for yourself, your loved ones, even your rival maybe, than Home Field Apparel. We are going to do a little thing, Shirt of the Week, with our friends at Home Field this week. Alex, what school does our Shirt of the Week come from? And since podcasting is a visual medium, what does the shirt look like?
Hail to the victors. This is a University of Michigan shirt. And it actually says Hail to the Victors now that I look at this picture of it. Again, podcasting is a visual medium. It is a picture of a Michigan helmet, the winged helmet, on a bed of roses. I can't figure out why a Michigan helmet would be on a bed of roses.
Well, Alex, Home Field specializes in vintage apparel, and I'm told by my sources that Michigan did used to go to Rose Bowls.
Oh, that must have been before our time. Okay.
I had nothing to do with this.
I'm also.
Godfrey is old enough to remember that time of college.
Oh, he is old enough to remember that time.
I'm not.
I'm definitely not. I'm also told that Home Field founder and chief Connor has a father-in-law who had this design on a jacket at one point some time ago. Again, probably an old jacket, old enough to be retro at this point. But it's a great looking shirt. And
God, you guys are
I
terrible.
think that is our Home Field shirt of the week. I unironically like it. I mean, I'm ironically praising it, but I unironically like the shirt. I think we can maybe send out a pic of that shirt at some point later.
Follow the Split Zone Duo Twitter account. We will tweet the shirt out at some point in time with our promo code, which again is SZD, 20% off of your first order. Home Field Apparel.
By the way, you young assholes, you were all alive in 2007.
That's not the last time they went to the Rose Bowl. 2004, playa.
No,
Wow.
USC beat Michigan in 2007.
Was that the 2006 season?
Do your homework. Do your homework. They went three times in 4 years. They went three times in 4 years and lost.
I'm sorry. 2004 is the last time they won the Big Ten. My mistake.
Okay, that's enough. I do think that one underrated home field thing that you can do this holiday season, if you're into it, and then we're moving on, is buy a shirt for someone who you care about with a school that they very much dislike, and just play that game and mix it in with like something that they like. But I would think it was pretty funny if, like, you know, I bought this shirt for like one of my Penn State friends from Pittsburgh. Like, I would think that was a good time. So yeah.
If anybody buys me a Florida State shirt, it is going to a shelter in New York City.
See, Richard has an uncultured attitude about this. Yeah, I'll wear anything. I am not wearing
a collegiate apparel that is not the University of Florida.
I'll wear anything.
I'm in the middle.
I will say this. I am not wearing collegiate apparel of a team that plays major college football that is not the University of Florida.
So that's closer to where I'm at, in that I don't cheer for my alma mater, but I also can't just so remember when Tulane was one of the big new Saturday schools at home field. It was really hot. Everyone was like, oh, I gotta get a Tulane shirt. I'm like, I can't do that. I can't.
Yeah, no chance.
I can't be like, I mean, my in-laws are in Louisiana. I'm married into an LSU family, and they don't care about Tulane in that way. But I can't just be like walking around Nashville and be like, hey, roll wave. And I'm like, I didn't go there. I don't have a connection to it. Like, I keep a short list of schools that I support, either ironically or genuinely. And it really has to stay on that list. So I kind of feel Richard in that regard.
I like my Tulane shirt because I can wear it instead of wearing a yarmulke and kind of send the same message to my family. Tulane has a thriving.
A joke I understand completely that I cannot make. That's what that is.
Tulane has a thriving Jewish community, and this is in the
Tulane,
right audience. I can wear that Tulane shirt, and it's like, you know, I'm putting on for my culture there.
He is on Sundays, everyone at Tulane beats the Baptist to lunch. I'll put it that way.
Well, I learned something.
There we have it.
Oh,
anyway,
big time. Yeah.
Let's have some fun on this podcast. Again, Home Field Apparel, SZD, for 20% off your first order. We have some fun undefeateds, some fun defeateds, as we are calling them on this show, that we want to talk about this week. Two of them are in the Mountain West, which is now 4 games into its schedule. Most of the league has actually played 4 games, so this league is going to have cancellations like everybody in this upcoming week. 2 undefeated teams in this league overall, and neither of them are Boise State. As you would expect, the 2 teams in the Mountain West that are 4-0 and playing a national showcase game on CBS this week, just as planned, assuming that everything goes to plan, Nevada and San Jose State. Wow.
It's San Diego State. They're playing San Diego State.
Oh, excuse me. Yes, sorry. Nevada and San Jose State are the two, to be clear, 4-0 undefeated teams. Nevada and San Diego State are playing in the CBS Showcase game, which, wow, at the risk of one too many Michigan digs on the show, Brady Hoke is coaching. Where I was going. Wow.
Don't worry. We'll get there.
Unbelievable anything about that. Anyway,
I am inclined to believe that this is the first Mountain West non-Boise State regular season game on broadcast television ever.
Yeah, I mean, there's a good chance.
It quite literally has to be.
Give me your qualifier again.
The first non-Boise State Mountain West regular season conference game on broadcast television ever.
I don't know if the Mountain West has had a conference game on broadcast television.
Well,
yeah, Boise played Colin Kaepernick and Nevada.
And where did it air?
Yes.
That was on ABC. I'm pretty sure.
Double check on that one.
We'll double check that.
At any rate,
Cap was not a thing like that.
No, Boise,
but they beat them.
Boise and Cap.
No,
that was
what
a good
I'm saying,
game.
Yeah, no, it's a good game, but I'm saying, like, in order to schedule that on broadcast television, there would have had to have been a pretty outsized amount of like hype. And
it was Friday. It was Friday.
It was a Friday night on ABC?
Yes. I don't know, but I remember I was driving to...
Damn it, that's Full House territory.
I remember I was driving to Tallahassee to watch Florida play Florida State. And it was the day of the Camback Iron Bowl, if I've got my things in the right place. It was the Camback Iron Bowl. Take the money and run.
Take the money and run.
Anyway,
Never
let's get this on track, because we have two teams here that we want to talk about who are undefeated, who are not normally undefeated, more than like a game into the season, if that. Nevada, San Jose State. We'll talk about them in whatever order is organic. But Richard, which of these two fun defeateds do you see as being on the more sustainable path to long-term relevance in this conference?
I think that's a really, really good question, honestly. I sort of think it's Nevada. Now, the qualifier is if Jay Norvell is going to be there for a long time, which I don't know, but let's pretend that they do. All right. I think I'll take Nevada. I personally just like Nevada. I like the way they are playing right now. They are 11th nationally in third down conversions allowed at 28%. When you watch them, if you turn on TV on Saturday afternoon and you watch them, they have a dizzying array of simulated creeper pressures on defense. Basically, they walk up 6-7 guys, and you don't know who's coming. And then 4 of them come, or 3 of them come, which means 3 or 4 of them drop out. And the picture changes for the quarterback very, very quickly. They're going to play San Diego State. It's going to be a slugfest because San Diego State has a pretty good defense too. I trust Nevada's offense to put up points in some way, shape, or form in this game. I do not trust San Diego State to do that because San Diego State cannot throw the ball. Also, stay with me here about our friend Brady Hoke, right? So Nevada's defensive coordinator, Brian Ward, he goes back with Dino Babers to the Bowling Green days when Dino was sort of making his hay. Dino actually had to fire him at Syracuse last year, which is the reason why he's at Nevada. Ward was replaced at Syracuse by Tony White. White is a disciple of Rocky Long, who you'll remember was sort of rumored to be going to Syracuse as defensive coordinator last December after he, air quotes, retired from San Diego State. Rocky Long was hired by Brady Hoke as his defensive coordinator for 2 years, while Hoke was the head coach of the Aztecs before Hoke went to Michigan in 2010.
Yes.
Then Rocky Long got the head coaching job until last season when he, air quotes, retired, paving the way for Brady Hoke to get the San Diego State head coaching job again after Hoke returned as a defensive line coach to serve under Long in 2019.
What a meritocracy this sport is.
Everybody
Tremendous.
Got that?
Well done. Well done.
Do you know where Rocky
good.
Long is now?
Rocky Long is at
beach?
New Mexico. Rocky Long is at New Mexico.
No, that's the funniest thing. This is why when people are always like, I wish someone would pay me $13 million to go away. They're all junkies, and they can't stop. And they don't ride off into the sunset and enjoy. It's not like they're like, I'm going to buy 500 PS5s now. They don't do things like we do, people. They are junkies to authority and control. This guy should have retired like 6 times. Who the hell at that age with that much money and that much accomplishments says, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take the New Mexico DC job. I'm going to shove 7 burrs up my ass and work there?
I'm going to retire from San Diego, California at an advanced age to New Mexico. That is
he a skier? Does he like to ski?
That is nothing to speak ill of the fine folks out in the state of New Mexico. But folks, come on now. I'm telling you, and Godfrey is right. These dudes only know how to do one thing. That's why when you see Brady Hoke quickly after the Michigan job was at Tennessee, guys, these guys only know how to do one thing. These guys only want to do one thing. They are nomads.
Fought his balls off to get the Charlotte job. I think I already said it. So, Alex, I hate to be in this position. This may be the most uncomfortable professional position I've ever been put in my life. But have you guys looked at these schedules? They're 4-0 for a reason.
Yes.
These 2 teams are 4-0 for a reason, y'all. Okay,
well,
all right.
Well.
I don't want to be the guy who slags the G5 team, especially in a place as like as tough and hard as it is to win at like San Jose State. Y'all, San Jose State started the season by beating an Air Force team that I don't even think had practiced yet because of all the restrictions. They had
already lost to Navy. They had beaten Navy.
So
Air Force had beaten Navy by the time San Jose State played them. Just saying.
Okay. All right. I guess I'll give them that one. Then both of these teams have either played one or both of UNLV and New Mexico, who are first-year coach trash fires right now. I will give San Jose State credit because I think right now they have the better wins in that they beat, I guess, a functional Air Force, and they beat San Diego State. Nevada, love them to death.
Baby.
Love them to death. Overtime win against a Wyoming team that I can't make heads or tails of, to be honest with you, because like sometimes Wyoming either decides to come out and be the best Tom Osborne Nebraska team you've ever seen, or take a pistol out and shoot their toes off one at a time. The UNLV, Utah State, which got
they were
Gary
in a rock fight with UNLV.
Yes,
through like 2.5 quarters.
Okay,
they had that game in hand. They
got Gary Anderson fired at Utah State. And then they won by 7 at New Mexico. So look, I love y'all, and I here's the deal. I dig Nevada too, and I think accomplishment at San Jose State should just be celebrated because it doesn't happen often. But like, we might want to tap the brakes because I believe there's some 1- and 2-loss teams in the Mountain West who are about to take a crowbar to that ass.
Yes. All right. I want to point something out about San Jose State, and it'll just take a second, and then I'm going to bring it back for a question, which is it's relevant to this discussion. San Jose State interests me in the same way that like North Dakota State interests me, because there have been a lot of different iterations of this program over the years. Like you go through the history and they have actually won pretty big periodically, like pretty far spaced apart. They were in the sub 1A. I think this would have been at the time in a 1AA conference, the CCAA. Back before like 1950, they were actually a very dominant wartime program. They won a lot in non-major football. They have won a handful of conference titles in the Big West and elsewhere in their scattered FBS history. Several different coaches have had like 9, 10, 11 win seasons there. Darryl Rogers did in the 70s. Claude Gilbert did in the 80s. Mike McIntyre famously had one that he parlayed into the Colorado job. Mm-hmm. So it's not like as much of a barren wasteland as I think a lot of people think the San Jose State job is. Godfrey, how is that job viewed in the industry today? And then also compared to Nevada, which may need, I mean, both of these teams could theoretically lose coaches upward in the next couple of years if they stay on positive trajectories, which both Brent Brennan at SJSU and Jay Norvell at Nevada are.
Okay, so I can't draw a ton of comparisons between these two programs specifically, but I can tell you that they both live in the same ecosystem of getting California talent as a 1A, 1B type. They need to work the JUCO market efficiently. The JUCO market works a little different in the West. Player evaluation works a little differently in the West. They have had success periodically, but all of it has usually been contained to and explained by either a situation or a trend inside of college football, or the fact that like Bill Walsh coached there. So for a long time, California was just overproducing talent. We tell the same story in college football 20 different ways with different names. I believe that. And so stay with me for a second. When you see a successful San Jose State team, what that means is that California is overproducing mid-level talent to the point that no one else can pick it up or catch it, right? That's the same story that I tell at the team that I grew up cheering for, which is Georgia Southern. They took everything out of North Florida and Georgia that UGA and Florida couldn't take because this was the years before UCF and all those other programs. Boise State exists now in the modern age as an answer to how to innovate against, oh, hey, you know what? My grades aren't good enough to get into Cal. I can't get into USC because I'm not a 5-star. I'll just stay at home because it's California and it's beautiful, and I'll play at a place like San Jose State. Other programs moved in slowly, decade after decade, to eat away at that. Combined with the fact that, and this is where I really like get off on doing college football like anthropology. Do you all know how expensive it is to live in San Jose, California? It is cripplingly expensive. That's the Bay, y'all. That is as expensive to live there as it is to live outside of, I mean, it is outside of San Francisco, but like that whole area is prohibitively expensive. So guess what happens? Families move away, okay? So the recruiting is shifting out of that area slowly year by year. And I think it's getting harder and harder at San Jose State to recruit and to get people naturally in that area. And I think you're going to see that over time. That's why, in my personal opinion, the job I would take every time is Fresno State, because it's in the Inland Empire.
I was just going to ask that. Or like Sacramento State. They're going to be great in FCS. Yeah.
You're not wrong, Alex. That green V, when you watch Fresno State play, it's on the back of their helmets, and you're like, why is there a green V when their colors are red and white and red and red and red? That's the Valley. That's where migrant labor lives. That's where lower middle income people live. That's where normal families who produce athletes live. That's where minorities live who make up your football team. These are all the things that nobody takes into account. And year by year, you've seen more successful dynasties and regimes at places like Fresno or Nevada than you have at San Jose State, and I believe it's all connected.
Sure.
That is my thesis statement. Thank you. I will now accept my master's.
That all checks out. I will say that I'm going to enjoy both of these schools being, even in this weird year, like they're both probably going to have close to their best records ever. I mean, San Jose State won't quite, but like Nevada has not had, outside of the Kaepernick years, a lot in recent times. No. And they could go, 7-1 this year. They've had
Nevada, birthplace of the pistol.
One thing,
pistol offenses.
One thing that's been pointed out to me. You want to talk about weird irony and again social anthropology. One of the fastest growing cities in America, the last two censuses, is Las Vegas. Henderson, Nevada, Sunrise, Nevada. All of the I don't know if I'm doing Nevada. I don't know. I'm going to get killed in the comments, but all of that area surrounding Las Vegas has become a place that's affordable for families to move to, especially leaving California for tax reasons. Stay with me. There is a recruiting effort against UNLV where people go into the Las Vegas suburbs and they say, oh, your son's 18, 19 years old. Do you want him out on the strip every night, or do you want him in a family place like Reno or a family place like Fort Collins or a family place like et cetera, et cetera? Las Vegas right now is developing a ton of talent. They are on the upswing. Now, are they Dallas, Texas, or Houston, or Atlanta? No. But they're not doing too bad. They're looking like a California town, except people are recruiting their asses out of Las Vegas.
That's tough. And I don't think that there's a lot that could be done about that if you're
but what I'm saying, Alex, is but Nevada could, if they wanted to, position themselves more as a statewide representative. There's more heat on that rivalry than people.
Isn't that why they call themselves the University of Nevada instead of I think UNLV calls them UNR? It's kind of like Auburn fans call Alabama UAT. It's a whole different deal.
But that's the thing. You can't in a state like Nevada, you cannot ever eclipse Las Vegas. That's never going to happen.
Yeah, but there's a counterintuitive. You're thinking about it as a young professional, probably, or you're thinking about it evaluating the economic power of the city of Las Vegas, and you're right. But what we're talking about is how you trick the parent of an 18-year-old into thinking that you're safer, better, or more consistent. These are the kind of nonsense pablum ideas that you can infect, and it works. I mean, that. There's a more legit rivalry with Nevada and UNLV than I think people realize. And yeah, the state school system perception thing. There are people who absolutely resent the fact that Cal calls himself Cal, because everyone else is Cal something, right?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's that weird branding, which is why I still can't say Louisiana. I still have to say ULL. I'm not there yet.
One thing we have to remember is that there's a lot of ballots in Clark County and Washoe County. Sorry, my brain's been broken by the last few weeks. I've learned so much about Nevada counties that I honestly feel like I'm well equipped to start talking about the recruiting geography of that state. Because, wow. Who knows more Nevada counties than A, me looking at this Wikipedia page right now, and B, all of us just living through the election.
Alex, look, I'm going to say something, and I know we've been too long on this topic. You're joking a little bit, but every hot button swing state that you can see is a connection to a large amount of domestic growth that is diverse.
Yeah.
The economics are important to everything when you're talking about electric.
Explains America.
Yes. Everything about
America.
The fact Nevada is in the conversation right now. Hey, guess, y'all, what Pac-12 team have we talked the most about offseason as being a dynamic changer? It's Arizona State. This shit is connected. This is not me. I am not doing the Charlie thing in front of the board about Pepe Silvio. I promise. This is a real thing that the sport does explain America, but you can also figure out where the sport's headed by looking at America.
We're coming around to Spencer Rattler at the end of the show. Fun defeateds. Big Ten. One of these teams may not be fun defeated after Saturday. Ohio State and Indiana. How about it? Top 10 matchup with Indiana involved?
Richard, I want you to explain to me whether or not this is anything other than the meme. Are we going to see Cinderella just get like their face stomped in? Like, I want to believe. I don't even care about like Indiana winning. I just want this to be the fight that we think it is.
It's going to be tough.
Maybe for the first half.
It's going to be
It
tough.
ain't gonna. Yeah. They're gonna
For the first half.
They're gonna get their asses rocked.
This is a very rare top 10 game, and shout out Bill Connolly at ESPN Plus, our old friend, for putting this in historical context this week. Very rare to have a top 10 game where the spread is 20-plus points. And as we record this, it's 20.5. It'll settle around that probably by kickoff. It actually happened a few weeks ago with Ohio State and Penn State, and that game pushed there. But it's only happened a few times this century. Usually the result is chalk, but there have been some big upsets. I'm not going to ask what is the path to Indiana winning this game, because this is not an embrace debate bullshit show. I mean, the path to Indiana winning this game is a million things go perfectly, and they just are magic and, get some luck too. But what is the path to Indiana losing this game in a way that makes their fans feel even more optimistic about the growth of that program? Like, what do they have to show to continue this kind of upward trajectory that probably will not continue in the win column?
Good teams win. Great teams cover. I'm serious. Cover.
Sure.
Win this game. Lose this game by a not embarrassing amount. Make them bleed. Make them bleed in the second half, I think, is very important, right? Because let's say this is a 7-point game going into halftime. Ohio State gets the ball back and scores first possession, and then the game is over. Get a stop. Take them deep into the third quarter where people are thinking, is this a Purdue situation? Right? Now, yes, You're probably going to lose. They are the best team in the country, or one of them. Ain't no shame in it. But with the talent and the speed, Indiana can make Ohio State bleed a little bit.
Yeah, I think they could do that. Godfrey, what has Indiana done to build to this point, in your estimation, that is different than what the other Big Ten lower class has done the last 4 years? Because, I went to a school where this is kind of what you dream about, right? You dream about a year like this where you can maybe take your shot. Maryland's not the only place. Obviously, Rutgers is miles away from this, but this is what Purdue wants to have. This is the opportunity that, Northwestern's going to get a comparable shot in the West that we'll talk about later. This is the shot that the Big Ten's non-legacy programs all want, and I don't think a lot of people would have picked Indiana as the horse to build to this point. So why do you think they are the ones even kind of at the altar here?
It is one season. We didn't have this context wrapped around them. I feel like there's so much light on them in the absence of normalcy of this year. I just want to I love what they're doing. I love a usurper and an underdog and all that stuff, but it is 1 year. So if you're asking me how do you achieve this on a single year status, I think it's very, very possible for Purdue to do it again under Jeff Brom. I think it's extremely possible that Mike Loxley, especially with that quarterback, you can gel and have a season like this. I mean, remember, we still aren't even looking at a sum total of games here of any merit. Like, Indiana has had fun, and Michigan is historically bad, and Penn State is, good Lord, who saw that combination of unfortunate events happening. So if you're asking me how do they change their circumstances, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think they have. I think what you look at here and what you laud is patience and an investment in development, because it's not really my opinion so much as it is just what I've seen work over the years, where I like to go back to talking about Kentucky a lot, because you don't see established consistency. You don't see a narrative change for these programs and consistency be involved. You see a 9-win season, like a program goes to the Gator Bowl. They have a dynamic wide receiver or quarterback, and then they go back and they recede. I use Kentucky as an example because they seem to be the junk drawer in your kitchen, like the sauce drawer, the packet drawer, whatever, a couple random things thrown in there, maybe a hammer, and they just sort of find a way on offense to beat you and win 8 or 9 games. If Indiana is a defensive-first version of that, and they're able to continually recruit playmakers at a couple places on offense, I mean, keep in mind, this is a quarterback that, by all accounts, should be at Tennessee right now. They benefited from that. I think the recipe here is get an AD in a program that is willing to play the long game with you. And look, y'all, do y'all remember how many close losses they had? No one wavered from that. No one put Tom Allen on the hot seat. No one even went to him and said, fire a coordinator. They didn't. Like, they invested in him over a long period of time. So I think if I'm establishing a trend or consistency, Alex, it's not so much evaluating them like a lower-class Big Ten team, is that because I go back to Kentucky, I'm thinking, shit, maybe this is a basketball school formula. Maybe this is a way for basketball schools to slowly build respectable football programs.
A lot of people, Godfrey, are going to be very interested in Tom Allen. People at certain Midwestern programs where things are not going great for their coach. And Richard, I'm curious where you come down on this as well. Is Tom Allen going to be an attractive candidate elsewhere? And should he jump if he gets the opportunity? Remember, it's pretty rare for Power 5 coaches to leave Power 5 jobs. It only happens couple times a year, and it's always to a blue blood. Do you guys see that in his future?
He's not a Michigan man. He just isn't. If that's what if we're beating around that bush, I don't see that at all. And I think no.
Go ahead.
No, I think the people around him would be wise enough to show him, hey, Tom, the way in which you achieve success, everything that I just rambled about, is not going to be tolerated at Michigan. The recipe of the basketball school success, the recipe for Indiana's success was they weren't programmed to give as much of a shit as they probably should, or they might after this. So
it's sort of like same old Indiana as far as like losing close games. And like we said, we talked about it, I think last Monday, the Sunday before last. Like at some point in time, like math tells you they are not going to lose all of these one-score games like this. They are coin flips relatively. Eventually, you're going to win a few. And the funniest thing is they probably won the most unlikely of the bunch, which is the Penn State game where Michael Penix had the hand of God. As far as can they keep doing this, Indiana has the thing that Nebraska doesn't have, that Michigan needs, that Purdue, They got a bunch of guys from Florida, which means they're really fucking fast. And that is sort of what Minnesota did last year, too. Minnesota and PJ Fleck's coaching staff went down to the South and got guys from Georgia and got guys from Florida. Tom Allen, because of his time in Florida, coached it at Seffner, Armwood, down near Tampa, has inroads into the state of Florida. They have gotten much. Look up and down that roster. They're too deep. Their best players are all from Florida. So it's not to say that I don't know if they can continue to do this in Florida. But eventually there becomes a perpetual level of success, one would think. And I do think because of that, he's built it to where I don't think this is a house of cards at Indiana right now because of this talent.
It's not a house of cards, but it's going to have a reasonable ceiling, and that's okay because I think that's the point. Like that's what Kentucky was smart about, and if Indiana is smart, and I think Allen is too, they're going to lock him up to a deal that's going to be very similar to a Mark Stoops type situation where it is, hey, we don't expect to go to the Rose Bowl. If we do, that's absolutely amazing. But you've brought relevance and an actual identity to this program for the first time in the modern era. So let's keep doing that. Look, man, here's the deal, y'all. This can't happen a lot of places. That's the basketball school thing. If you would have had all those close losses the way that they had those close losses at Auburn or Mississippi State or even Texas Tech, there would have been like cartel murders. It would like people blowing up in cars and shit. Like there's no way that those booster corps would have tolerated that shit. Indiana wasn't paying as much attention, or they're just really patient as a people. Either way, that's how they got this result. And I don't think that fits the profile of most dumb people with money in this sport.
No, it's true. And it probably doesn't hurt that Indiana has spent the last 4 to 5 years in particular in perpetual fire the basketball coach mode. And they finally did with Tom Crean, and they're probably going to eventually have to with Archie Miller because that's just not working.
So he owes his success to Tom Crean, which means that you can technically credit Georgia with the success of Indiana. Is that where we're going?
And also, it all comes around too because I think Tom Crean is a Harbaugh brother-in-law, so the Harbaughs have actually helped Indiana in numerous ways this year.
When you walk through the Western Kentucky lobby. I don't know if it's still up, but it was for years. When you walk through the lobby of their complex, there's a picture of the Harbaugh family with Jack and everyone, and then there's Tom Crean's goofy face stuck on the end of it, like, because he married the sister. Oh, it cracks me up every damn time.
Tremendous. What a group. There was another. Well, I'm not sure that I would call Northwestern fun defeated because they're Northwestern.
No.
But
they're not fun ever.
But just let's talk about this for a sec. There is a game of unbeatens at Ryan Field in Evanston also this weekend. Wisconsin at Northwestern. Wisconsin has had a bad time at Northwestern over the last decade, really. It appears that Northwestern is mildly more competent on offense, though not much more. Even now that Mick McCall is gone and Mike Bajakian is in as their offensive coordinator. But their defense rules, as it often does. In 4 games, they've allowed 3, 20, 13, and 20 points. All of those were against teams that appear to have at least a slight idea how to score, though jury is still out on Maryland, Iowa, Nebraska, and Purdue. Is Pat Fitzgerald just going to do this forever? Where we're on this cadence of like every couple of years they're just going to be like, yeah, you're pretty good, and then when it's bad, it is going to be bad, and we're just going to do it forever. We won't have any unions. We will bust those up if they come in, and just this is going to be it forever.
Yeah, he when I was doing the rumor roundup thing for Athlon, that was the one where like when I was doing Big Ten, I was like, so like Northwestern, are they finally going to fire his ass? And every coach was like, no, like. That formula is still fine. They just had like a monumentally bad year on offense. And I think I did this on the show a couple weeks ago. Just go back and look at the 2019 score deficits on the way that they lost. They lost games like 10-9 and shit like that. Like all they did was flip that around. And if they're literally 9 points better on offense on average than they were last year, they would have gone to a bowl.
Yeah, and they were bad last year.
And the answer to the question is that, yes, they are going to keep doing this. They are going to probably do this forever. I think eventually, though, you have to run in to like just a dynamo of an offensive player. Like at some point in time.
Like Stanford does, you mean?
Yeah.
They haven't had their like even their shit. They haven't even had a KJ Costello.
Yeah. I mean, like at some point in time, you got to like ass backwards into some like first round wide receiver or something that you just get. Like at some point in time that has got to happen.
So this is just my life. But like I'll be talking to coaches and I'll be like, so what is it? Like is Fitz like some genius that we don't know about? And they're like, well look, what you have to know is like, you know, their back end and like their linebackers, they're so smart. Yes. They're just and they work so hard. And like you can just like there's something about a Northwestern linebacker where it's like, you know, they're never going to have enough talent to win the league, but they're always going to be in the right position. And like I'll listen to this for like 10 minutes and I'll just be like, man, just fucking say they're white. Just fucking say they're white. Okay, can we move on? Like I know it's some Polish kid from fucking Wisconsin who you recruited. Just say he's white. That's my life.
We could have a long discussion not only about the way that Big Ten fans code descriptions of every position group, but also about how Northwestern would probably benefit a great deal if Chicago ever became the football recruiting hub that I think people who don't know this sport would think that Chicago is, but it isn't. Yeah. And I don't.
Wait, isn't Chicago? But isn't it like Alex? You're officially a Big Ten graduate. Isn't Chicago land still good? And what I mean by that is like the 110-mile radius.
We need to have Matt Brown on this show sometime, and we can actually talk about this in the Extra Points room with Matt on the Moon Crew Discord, which you should join.
The reason why I was asking is like we're talking about coaches right now, and like Sean Lewis is not getting any play, and like Kent is still undefeated. But I don't know where you put a Sean Lewis right now. I'm not saying stick it out at Kent because that shit's gonna expire, but like having he played at Wisconsin. He's from Chicago. He trained under Dino as a play caller. Kent State, by the way, their offense runs lightning quick. Very fun to watch. I don't know where I'd fit him in the Midwest right now. If that's where, like, I don't know where do you. There's no AAC job in the Chicago Big Ten footprint.
No, and I think Chicago. We were talking earlier, Godfrey. You were about, for instance, Nevada and families who maybe, or San Jose State families would move away from the San Jose area because of the prohibitive costs. I think there's been some population loss in particularly the city of Chicago. Matt told a story in Discord the other day that he volunteers at his local high school from time to time, and this was a big-time Notre Dame neighborhood in the 60s, and now they do not have the players to field a JV team. And so it's just like between like the neighborhood shifts and people loving basketball, they've got a lot of charter schools in Chicago,
Alex.
which does not necessarily, yeah.
Just say white. The white,
No.
the white people. You said Notre Dame, Alex. The white people
sorry.
moved away.
Sure.
The white people moved away, Alex.
But to make the broader point, and this was something that we were talking about with Matt, to have a big football infrastructure in a city requires like a lot of different entities to kind of be in it together. And
Money,
Chicago has not done that very well. It just hasn't really been geared toward it. It's a very chartered system. And the other point that Matt made was that the neighborhoods that traditionally were football factories in Chicago have been those hardest hit by population shifts. So if those trends reverse, that'd be great for Northwestern.
If I give there's plenty of things to criticize about my home birth state, but like the reason why so much NFL talent comes out of the state of Georgia is because publicly funded high schools are big, new, clean, accessible, and well-funded for athletics in a fairly good climate. January in Georgia still sucks ass, but like by and large, you can play baseball and football all year round, and the city and the county want you to do that. And it's not something that you can really plug in a lot of the Rust Belt anymore.
It's a fair point. We talked about Northwestern. One question about Wisconsin. Godfrey, Richard and I have talked about this. I'll open this up to everybody, though. Have we seen anything out of them that makes us think people will not be 100% bullshitting like everyone kind of quietly agrees to do every year? when it's like December and we're like, they could be tough for Ohio State. Yeah.
No.
Like,
hey, Alex, I put this in the show notes.
because we don't do that.
No, I put this in the show notes on Sunday, and we just ran through it because we were going fast. This Wisconsin team is the most Wisconsin team that is Wisconsin. They're
fucking mean.
They might have their best
great.
quarterback since Russ. They might have their best quarterback since Russ.
But y'all, it's just the most vanilla. Like, you know what you know exactly where that ceiling's gonna hit. There's no way this team is built to beat Ohio State.
Do you guys want to know what they are ranked in air yards per pass?
Some triple option shit.
100th in the country.
Told you.
Is Wisconsin in air yards per pass. They're not even hiding it. Not even hiding it this year.
Yeah, would you, if you didn't have to go through the effort, would you?
No.
True.
No.
Here's what pisses me off though. Think about how many coaches have come off that tree, and if you run the triple, you have a scarlet letter. It's the same shit. It just has two tight ends, and there's no B back. I mean, it's the same thing.
They're probably going to win this game against Northwestern. If they do and they avoid COVID cancellations, then they will go and play Ohio State, and until further notice, they will lose to Ohio State. But
yeah, it'll be like 59-14, and then we'll be like, all right, Wisconsin's going to the Cap One Bowl.
Yes, that's probably what's going to happen. But you know what? Hey, Wisconsin, surprise us. Make this something where people can clip this and make fun of us for saying this on the show. It would be fun.
Still haven't visited. Still haven't been there. Want to.
Richard, are we at sneaky tasting menu and vested interest time?
We have arrived there. Yes, sir, we have.
Okay. So before we do sneaky tasting menu, we should note a few things this week. Number one is that a lot of games are being canceled.
We're at 13, I think, as we record. 15 last week was the high water mark. It is not anymore about total number of games being canceled now that everybody's in the boat. It's rate of cancellations, and that rate of cancellations has increased 10% every week. Shout out to, I believe, Andy Wintry of Stadium, who tweeted that out. I think I've tweeted it out a couple times this week. I think, and I'm coming off the top of the dome, it was like, I don't even want to do it. I don't want to guess because I can't remember the stat.
I don't gamble on college football, but I think I want to start gambling on which games are going to get canceled.
That's
Meta,
I had a
right.
All right,
get
so
odds on that.
I had a bet on Charlotte and Marshall this week at Charlotte plus 21, and when I put it down, I was really sad. I was like, Charlotte, like they're getting the rug pulled out from under them every week. They're probably not going to get to play this. And within 20 minutes of me making the bet, Charlotte was canceled against Marshall. I feel for them. Good story by Andy Staples in The Athletic about how Will Healy and Charlotte are sort of going about trying to be happy and find fulfillment in a year that has not been fun for anyone and probably really hadn't been fun for them. So there's that. College football is kind of in a weird place in the world right now. I mean, this pandemic is not under control, and we're doing this, and that's happening. Another thing, a very negative commentary on, I think, where college sports fit into the world that we do want to just acknowledge. There's an ugly story out this week about LSU in USA Today. A lot of allegations in that story that would warrant heads rolling if they are even close to true. And it's been deeply reported, thoroughly reported. Serious charges about individuals there doing unforgivable things. LSU having a culture that is, I think, really unacceptable and unsafe for female students in particular, as it's been reported. We don't know a lot about that right now, but also while we're talking about college football's odd week in general, and not just odd, but sort of a week where some things about how the sport fits into the world are in stark view. I wanted to mention that. I don't think that we have a ton to say about it until we learn more, but it's very troubling, and I think that LSU needs to take that reporting very seriously.
Yeah, I would just add very quickly, we pride ourselves on we have no demand put against us to have a hot take, and I think sometimes the absence of an immediate reaction is the smartest thing, in that this bears a lot of thought, a lot of investigation, and I think that I don't really have an instant reaction to it, other than it is something we need to mention for I don't know, I don't want to sound like pretentious or anything, the good of humanity or whatever, but like I still think there might be more to come too, to be honest with you.
Yeah, we'll see what we learn about this story. The early indication, obviously, it's really troubling to read, and you should read it if you get a chance. We'll talk about the weekend. Again, the schedule for this weekend has never been more subject to change. We're recording this podcast on Wednesday. My guess is by the time we go to bed tonight and before the first person downloads this podcast, there will be more games canceled this week, again, because this pandemic is not under control. But hopefully as many games as possible can be played with as few people as possible getting this virus, because it is not going to be a good couple weeks in America in that regard. On Thursday, Tulane is playing Tulsa. That game is on ESPN. This excited me because when I was a kid, I always mixed up Tulane and Tulsa. Did anyone else do that?
Could you please is that a Yinzer issue? What?
No, they look kind of alike on paper, and
if you would have said Tulsa and Toledo, I would have had sympathy.
It's not that they're culturally similar. It's just they start with the same three letters. They start with the same three letters. But anyway, that's a game between two teams that, on Tulsa's part, I think they're actually probably pretty good. They appear to be good. They only have one loss, and it was to Oklahoma State, and they had a couple of really good comeback wins against UCF and now SMU. I have no vested in that, but I am excited to see how it unfolds. And Tulane, and I asked you this last week, Godfrey, I guess we don't really know, like, how good are they? It varies by the week. They're one of the most up and down teams in the country.
On the last show, I said that they are good, but they just have not found any consistency. I would stick by that. I would rather spend my time. Richard, we both, man. Old boy at Tulsa was dead, right? Like dead.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who are surprised that Philip Montgomery is the head coach of Tulsa as we speak.
Yeah, I remember, like, I got to be careful what I say on the show, but, like, I remember having a very specific conversation with a coach, like, going through the steps of when Tulsa was going to open and the candidacy and stuff. So, like, I don't know if it was a money move or what, but it's just crazy that he survived and that he actually turned it into something. You don't see that a lot, and they had been bad for a while.
I think he took a couple of years ago a pay cut, and it was like kind of jarring at the time because coaches just don't really take pay cuts in normal times at that level of football. And him and his whole staff just took cuts because, certainly still not at Tennessee. Because I guess, again, agents are just incredible. Who represents all of Tennessee's assistants, and can they represent us?
I will tell you, I found it very curious who did not take a pay cut, by the way. First of all, Jeremy Pruitt did not take, or excuse me, I should say that. Jeremy Pruitt froze his salary.
Yes.
T. Martin took a pay cut. T. Martin took a pay cut.
T. Martin, beloved alumnus, played at Tennessee. The rest of that staff said, "Fuck you, pay me."
Dead ass. But
if you're a hardcore fan, does that not break your heart? Where you're like, they don't give a shit, do they?
I don't wanna. God, I don't wanna let these guys off the hook because on the balance. But as Godfrey used to have an agent. I have an agent. Like, both of us know what our agents would say if an employer came and said, "Would you like to take a pay cut?" So remember that when you factor in who does and doesn't take pay cuts in all of these scenarios.
Yes, and also understand, too, that someone like Jeremy Pruitt or Will Muschamp or whomever, they're on a long-term deal. They can afford to do this. It's mainly for PR. They have a lot more money in the bank. Also, most assistant coaches are hired and fired on an annual base. They have no job security is what I'm trying to say. So they're up to be rehired at the end of every year. So it's more about the bird in the hand there. So I believe that. But yeah, if you haven't, like, I have a lawyer right now who's negotiating like things for me, and you don't tell them to go backwards because they won't work for you if you do that. That's not how it works.
And if you go backwards once, the fear is that you will go backwards again and again and again and again and again.
Yep.
I would also say, just to be clear, that I don't blame the coaches one bit for doing what workers should generally do, which is, try not to let your employer take money back from you. I'm just remarking on the amazing power that coaches have amassed in the marketplace over the years, because most of us, most people are at-will employees in the economy, and when their employer says you're taking a pay cut, well, you kind of got to do that, and unless you got a union contract or a guarantee in your deal that precludes that. So again, agents, very valuable. Friday, I have a rubbernecker, 7 p.m. 7 p.m. God's time on CBSSN, UMass at FAU.
I would rather not.
FAU minus 29.5 for me. We are fading. UMass.
Why do we let him do this segment?
No, I'm fading UMass. I'm not like some people on this show betting money on UMass to produce a positive outcome.
I'll do it again.
Fade UMass. That's a rubbernecker. You guys got anything on Friday?
Counseling.
Are we moving? Are we ready to move to Saturday?
We are moving on. We are moving on through Friday. Saturday, App State, Coastal Carolina at 11 a.m. Curious?
Yes.
App State is not that good.
No, I don't think they're awesome. Their quarterback, Zach Thomas, also got hurt last week, and I hope he's healthy. I don't know if he will play or at what strength he will play. But it's a good test for Coastal because App is not its best self this year, but they're still just kind of big ugly in a way that is, for a school like Coastal, if they can not get physically pushed around in that game, that's a really good sign for Coastal. Because we know Coastal has speed and size, particularly at receiver, and can move the ball. Can they control the line against App State? That would be very impressive if they can.
Obviously, I'm going to stump for the triple option bowl between Georgia Southern and Army, Jeff Monken's former team against his current one. That kind of sells itself. If you're into that kind of kink, buddy, that's your dungeon. LSU, Arkansas. Whoo, boy. LSU.
Don't lose that one.
It's been a week, and
don't lose that one.
Shit, things are starting to get serious there. I don't want to be tongue-in-cheek about very serious situations around that program, but I will say this, that the people who make these decisions in this sport often conflate the seriousness of things like sex assault allegations with your win-loss record, and for all of those things to break bad on LSU as a coaching staff and as an athletic department in 1 week would be a shitstorm. No other way to describe it.
Cal, Oregon State. Cal got thumped. I don't know. I don't know.
I wrote a whole piece about how Cal would be favored on that short-term rescheduling, and that just jumped my ass. This is why you don't gamble, kids. Everything I talked to 3 Power 5 coordinators and like, oh yeah, Cal's going to win that game. So y'all don't gamble because the damn coaches don't know.
Cincinnati, UCF, 2:30. Both of those games.
Woo!
Are 2:30, by the way. Cincinnati, UCF, 2:30. Speaking of gambling, Alex, both of us popped the Bearcats at a 3-point favorite. What's that line right now?
5.5?
6.5.
Sunday afternoons, Moon Crew Discord, gambling fantasies. We are out here trying to win you money and get your closing line value.
It's true. We have a lot of closing line
y'all.
value every week in that room. It's a thing that Richard and I have learned to do. I worked on it with
Shout
our
out
old
Bud
Bud Elliott. Yep. We try very hard at this, and in this case, I mean, Cincinnati wins every game by like 30 right now. I don't know if they're going to beat UCF by 30, but they should win that game. They are better. They're just better.
I'll say
They're
this:
what UCF was.
They have to. They have to for playoff consideration. And I know there was that nonsense last week with ECU, but this is their last chance on a national stage because it looks more and more likely like they won't be able to get BYU in that game back on the schedule. They got to stomp their ass if they even want to stay in the conversation. Is that fair? Nope. Is it the reality? Yes.
No question. Anything else in the afternoon, or are we going to the evening? We got a big one.
Tennessee at Auburn.
Messy.
6 p.m.
I cultivate anxiety. So Iowa, Penn State. Someone has to lose that game. Someone will lose that game and have full program referendum afterwards.
Next week, we are going to have a conversation. We are going to have a conversation about the Penn State Nittany Lions in the Michigan.
I'm dying to.
Bet your ass we will.
We are going to have a discourse, a national conversation. 6:30 p.m. God's time. Oklahoma State at Oklahoma.
Bedlam.
Richard, anything can happen in Bedlam.
Anything can happen in Bedlam. Oklahoma can win by a lot. Oklahoma can win by a medium amount. Or Oklahoma can win by tiny margin. Anything truly can happen in this game.
I would like to.
Sure.
Good. Are we still on Bedlam?
Yeah, Godfrey. Do you want to do the duty, and do you want to explain, why Oklahoma State could? I don't know. Do you want to skip it or do you want to do it?
I actually had something to say about Liberty, so I know what kind of mood that will put.
Well,
let's
go to the only more problematic program in terms of its leadership the last couple of years than Oklahoma State. Tell us about Liberty, Godfrey.
Zing. So Liberty's ranked. They're 8-0. They are right now. I feel like we have to say this every part of the segment. As of this recording, they are playing NC State.
They're also a 3-point underdog, which is curious.
That is curious. I think they're going to win that game.
So this brings me to my point. This game actually has, to me, more intrigue and more consequence if they win it than the Virginia Tech game, because I think Virginia Tech is more trash than they're letting on, and that Fuentes kind of lost that team. I just want to point this out because not a lot of people know the things I know. Dave Doran was supposed to take over. He was supposed to be the next head coach at Ole Miss after Hugh Freeze was let go. So I just find that to be ironical. This could in a weird way, NC State beating Liberty could re-cement Dave Doran's position in Raleigh. But what I just said is factually accurate. So, welcome to 2020.
Is NC State just? And I'm very well versed in their history, and I know that it's very tough to reach high heights there, but. Is Dave Doran just going to, just do that forever?
Do this forever.
Yes, okay, that's a generational thing, Alex, because when I was y'all's age, I would ask people my age, and I'd be like, why is NC State not better? They, have NFL talent. And they're like, they're just always like that. Chuck Amato's weird. I mean, it's the same. It'll be like that until the sun burns out.
I mean, they're not bad. They're 5-3, I think, and they lost their quarterback, and, they're not bad. But,
they are extremely NC State.
Yep, pretty much. And I assume that in 3 years, there will be, 12 guys from that team on NFL rosters, and
yeah,
it's just fascinating.
Do we want to do the how Oklahoma State can win Bedlam thing?
What are we? Yeah, I mean,
that one?
Sure. Here, let me do this. Let me do this. This game's in Stillwater. No, it's not. It's I can't. It's in Norman. I don't have shit. I don't have anything.
I don't know, man. Rattler could come out and throw 3 picks, that is in his wheelhouse, by the way. We are Rattler Hive on this show, but he could come out there and throw 3 picks. Now, I do think Oklahoma State is going to try to limit the possession, so I do think Oklahoma needs to be clinical. Oklahoma was not clinical against Iowa State, and they lost the game. We're not sitting here saying there's not a path here. Oklahoma State's got a really good defense, but I do not think Oklahoma State wins this game at a track meet. I don't think Oklahoma State can win this game if we start ticking up much higher over 40 points.
I'm just gonna save all of it for Sunday because I want a referendum on him, and there's no reason to do it now. Just wait until they get their ass beat, and we'll talk about Mike Gundy later.
9:30 God's time. Last one for me. And I will watch it because I'm curious enough. USC at Utah. So I think that the way this goes is Utah either just hands them their asses. Utah has not played, so they should be pretty fresh if they have enough guys to play.
They are going to win this game by 10 points.
Utah could win this game by a ton, and it could be ugly. Or USC could win by 1 or something, maybe 2, and just, again, continue to ensure Clay Helton's job security in perpetuity.
Salt
I'm sure
Lake
this
City.
game will be a close shave here or whatever, but the funniest outcome is absolutely Utah stomping their ass.
First off, USC should be 0-2. And that's the failure of the Arizona schools. Second off, Salt Lake City is one of the hardest places to play in college football that nobody knows about. And when they want to get up for something, they get up for it. And I'm telling you right now, USC is fraudulent.
I mean,
I suddenly feel like I'm doing old school talk radio.
We're about done here, so I just want to point this out. I've never been to Utah, never set foot in the state. I really, really want to. It looks beautiful.
It is beautiful.
I really want to go there. I just think it would be fun. Just have a nice, wholesome time in nature.
I don't have anything else in the. I mean, Georgia. There's no reason to mention the Mississippi State game. I would assume, but
I disagree. I want to watch Georgia get
Why?
mean. I want to watch Georgia get medieval on that offense. I mean, no points.
Okay, so this is what I was going to ask. Is there a performance incentive here for a team that's already been written off so soundly? In other words,
No,
like, can
they
you,
all-
at
don't they all
US
hate
Georgia,
their
can you
coach?
do something that's effective that we're going to notice?
Sorry, I thought you were talking about Mississippi State.
I thought you were talking about Mississippi State too.
No, I'm saying so Georgia's clawing for relevancy because they have 2 losses now and they're probably out of it, right? Is there anything you can do to Mississippi State to get noticed is what I'm asking.
I don't know about notice because Georgia cannot achieve its goals this season, but I do think that there is a legitimate point of professional pride as far as Kirby Smart and that defensive staff and that defense are concerned, which is there's no fucking way Mississippi State with that bullshit is going to march it down the field on us, yada, yada, yada.
Right.
Florida just put up 100 almost. There
Right.
is a point of professional pride there in the way that they lost to Florida, in what Mississippi State and Mike Leach want to do, et cetera, and how bad they've been this season to this point on offense since the LSU game. I do not think Georgia wants to let them off the canvas at any point in time on defense.
Last thing for me, I missed it in the afternoon because it's not a good game, but little birds in my ears. South Alabama's 3-5. Watch that. They're playing Georgia State this week. Watch that job.
Wasn't there just a change in that job, like in the last year and a half?
All I said was people
No.
talking about the job.
All that I'm saying, and I'm not in any way asking about what we think is going to happen there in the future, but yeah, I think they've only had their coach for 2 years and change.
Troy-sized expectations.
Yeah.
Noon, God's time, Sunday, SZD Bowl.
Wow.
Jacksonville Jaguars, Pittsburgh Steelers.
I was like, shit, we aren't
I
playing.
need a quarterback. I need TJ Watt and his buddies to do the business on Sunday afternoon.
I think we're aligned. We're aligned on that. I understand that this isn't going to happen, and they do not really feel like a juggernaut. But when you're 9-0, I'm gonna entertain thoughts of 16-0. It's a pandemic. Why not? And honestly, most of the remaining schedule sucks. They're going to be favored in every game. That does not mean that I think they're going to win all of them. But let's just put it on the table. Hey, why not?
So
Also, Mike Tomlin. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, Mike Tomlin, very happy that he's the coach of my team. He had a great quote this week. Someone was like, are the Jacksonville Jaguars a trap game? He was like, I'm not into this trap game talk. We're not a Big Ten team going to play a MAC school. I love an NFL coach who clearly watches college football. And he has a son who plays at Maryland.
If Bill Belichick was doing the shit that Kevin Sumlin does on the defensive back end, putting his high-level talent in positions or places in the field to be successful, and using his chess pieces, Minkah Fitzpatrick, in creative ways, if he was Bill Belichick, through the roof. Never had a losing season. It's quite interesting, QWHITE, interesting, that Mike Tomlin is not lauded as one of the best coaches in the National Football League. I personally cannot wait to watch my Jacksonville Jaguars get their faces kicked in by the Steelers on Sunday, and take me towards Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, or Zach Wilson.
Godfrey, do you
We're
want
playing the Saints. Fuck them in the ear.
Okay,
Anyway.
all right. That's about all we got. Godfrey, where can the people find you besides on the floor? Even though you want to feign apathy with the Falcons, I know you will be in front of the TV at...
No, I don't watch the Saints game live. What I do is I check it on my phone every 15 minutes, and I usually walk around my backyard the entire time. None of this is a joke or hyperbole. At 38 Godfrey on Twitter and Instagram, bannersociety.com. I'm sad Drew Brees isn't playing. I would have loved to have broken his ribs.
You can find me at Alex_Kirshner on Twitter. And Richard, tell the fine people where they can find you.
Everywhere, but centrally located, RJ_Wrights on Twitter. See you Sunday.